welcome back to Queer Late Night. I'm your host, Elmick Colors, and I'm the host, like I just told you, and I'm going to tell you one more time, I'm the host. And Queer Late Night is a podcast that's committed to providing space for our queer people and our queer allies to share their professional and personal journey and insight. I'm joined by my best friend in the whole I world, the Minnie Mouse to my Mickey, if that makes any sense. Tom and Jerry. Those are references. It's the one and only Ricky Roman.
Wubba lubba dub dub.
And okay, do you want to tell everybody what that means?
If you know, you know, and if you don't, you don't. Hi, everybody.
How you doing?
I'm well. Blessed and highly favored.
Yes.
And grateful to be here.
I'm grateful that you're here too. Are you booked?
I'm booked in my heart.
And you're blessed, and you're blessed in your heart too, baby.
I'm blessed in my heart too.
I know that's right. And we are not alone, right? And we never want to be alone. We are joined by the most fabulous Brooklyn organizer there is, and I'm going to say that now, and then watch me say it in another episode. I want to go ahead and do this introduction I've been rehearsing. Joining us on this podcast tonight is Maxim Ibadov. He, they, fab, is a Brooklyn-born, Moscow-raised Jewish American who's not afraid of living their authentic self. They're an event organizer, podcast host, producer, theater director, activist, and art educator at the Park Avenue Armory. The Brooklyn-born, Russian-raised, testifies to their experience in growing up in America but being Brooklyn-raised. Maxim's here to talks about their intersectionality as well as to bring us information about the organizations and all the events that they plan in Brooklyn that supports people from, I don't want to get this wrong, it's the CEECA, which stands for the Caucasus, Eastern Europe, and Central Asian people, and the LGBTQ, inside the LGBTQIA plus community. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody from the non-conforming world, please welcome Maxim. That's what
Quiet.
Oh my God! Not the Trump introduction.
Quiet.
That is okay. Hi, Maxim.
Hi.
Where is the claps?
Where are the claps?
Every episode, I like how you poke around. You're like, what is it today? All right, we're gonna move on. Maxim,
Listen, I just got my STI panel. No claps.
No claps.
Okay.
All right, so no Zifra Mason for you.
Yes.
How you doing?
I am. I'm doing okay. I'm doing good.
You are?
Yes, I'm just taking it one day at a time. It's a bit of an interesting experience being, Russian raised queer American supporting Ukraine in times of war. So we're just taking it one day at a time, and I'm good. Very grateful and excited to be here with the two of you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. We know that it's been really difficult, especially with the war in Russia. I don't want to say everything that's going on because it's a lot more than just everything that's going on. People are dying left and right, innocent civilians, children's hospitals, apartment complexes. And this was a unjust waged war in which no human being should have to fear for their lives or live underground, especially just after a pandemic. But we're going to get to that.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that there is some queer news that Ricky Roman, sorry, I had to swallow my spit. Hey, you're listening to Queer Late Night, a late night podcast that gives people from the queer community to share their insight they've learned along their personal and professional journeys. We're partnered with Pretty Easy Podcasting, and they're in charge of all the editing for this podcast. While we don't have corporate sponsorships or sponsorships from anyone right now, so we're broke, we are very much welcoming any type of charitable donations to help make this show become more accessible to queer community around the world. Continue to listen, support, like, subscribe, and share. I'm your host, Elmick Colors. Ricky Roman has brought for us today.
Yeah.
Play your news button. You hit your news button?
I do have a news button.
Uh-huh. All right. That's a news button.
Okay. If you don't know the name Brittany Griner, then I don't know, you've been under a rock. She is a U.S. basketball star, and she's being detained in Moscow right? Oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm asking the guest to
Yes,
confirm my fucking news.
That's right. You're doing good.
Right. Long story short, she was detained for having a marijuana vaporizer, a vape pen, and this seems like it's such a nuance to get and detain an international superstar for, and I think it's very clear that because she's American and she was in Russia during these trying times, they came for her. They fucking came for her. They're like, okay, well, we got one.
What is the rule? So you're not allowed to have. What kind of vape pen was it? Was it like?
It was they're discreet at this point. I don't know exactly which one she had.
It wasn't
but
obviously a weed
know what I'm
pen,
saying?
right?
No,
Yes.
like they would have had to really do some investigating. They were trying to come for this girl.
Are
know what
you
I'm
not allowed to
saying?
have one of these, like the ones you're holding right there?
How could you know?
Yeah.
How could you know? Looking at this little thing, you're like, what's the contents of it are? Like, did you say, can I hit that?
Is that nicotine or
This
weed?
is nicotine, but you wouldn't
Right.
know. This could be either.
I know they're not
Yeah.
funding this podcast.
I mean, listen,
Yeah.
I can tell you this. As somebody who has successfully smuggled vape pens to Moscow on numerous occasions when I used to go back home, because I am from Moscow,
Yeah.
grew up there, my family's still there. There's no way they could check because that shit
Right.
doesn't smell.
Right.
It's very discreet, so for them to find it in her luggage, they had to target her.
Yeah.
They had to specifically go through all of her stuff to find it, and they found exactly what they were looking for. So the patrol officers had a field day, and it's absolutely atrocious that a black queer woman is being detained in Russia. And I don't know, where's Joe Biden? Where is Kamala Harris? Where are the State Department statements about that we're trying to get her out? So
Absolutely. The so they're detaining her until
I think it was May 14th.
Yeah, the Moscow court just said, definitely until mid-May. She's detained. I don't know if there are charges pressed, but I know that weed is criminalized in Russia.
I'm sure.
I am not sure about exactly what are the sentences, and what exactly how many years you can get for what amount.
Right.
However, the rule of law in Russia is so vague that they can just literally slap whatever. The prosecutors can slap whatever number they want, and the judge will just say, you know what, maybe let me add another couple of years on top of that.
I'm reading right here. It says she could face up to 10 years in prison if convicted on drug charges. Imagine being in a prison in a foreign country where you don't speak the language. Bring the girl home. Bring the girl
Exactly.
home. This is, I mean,
Over a vape pen.
it's sad to see someone's life being politicized, and that's we see this every day, but it's forefront right now.
Well, thank you for that. Can you not use your vape pen though on the thing? They're not paying for this. I have. Is that all your news?
That's mine. Yeah.
Do you have another button for queer banter?
Oh, sure. Yes.
Yes. Well, so the U.S. Senate is busy passing really important bills and getting people out of jail, of course. Fixing our homeless issue, of course. And they also are busy. They're not busy doing any of those things. I'm kidding. But they did decide that they're going to pass a U.S. bill to end daylight savings permanently. If the bill is passed, I guess, through Congress or Senate or however it works, I should know, but I don't. It would go before the president, Joe Biden, and it would get signed and take place in 2023. How does that feel for you? Do you like this, Maxim?
I actually think that they should have kept the other time, the permanent, there's daylight savings and there's another one that when we go back an hour, I kind of wish we had that. But just like you said, we don't have any other more important pressing issues. And considering that, let me break it down for you quickly how it works. There's the House of Representatives and there's the Senate. Both chambers have to pass it, and then it goes to Biden's desk. It's very easy to pass something in a House because you just need a simple majority. In a Senate, you need to have at least 60 votes to overcome a filibuster. So the fact that the Senate passed anything in these very pressing, but also
untimely.
very partisan times where Republicans don't want to work with Democrats and vice versa. So the fact that they were able to pass this is just fix our like healthcare system, fix our immigration system, send more money to Ukraine to fight, like close the sky, just
other bigger pressing things.
Exactly.
But so most people were saying, it should have happened a long time ago. It'd be helpful. A lot of people were saying, well, this would be helpful for a lot of the seasonal depression that people experience. There's still a lot of questions about. So, am I going to be going to school, putting my child on the bus in the dark? Am I going to put my child on the bus in the dark? Just like a really weird, like, I don't know, questions. I lived in a time zone where they didn't just switch before, and I thought it was amazing.
Really?
Yes. When I was in Manama, Bahrain, it's just the same time.
I thought in the United States. I was like, where do they do? Which time zone do they not do? Imagine in the United States, there's one time zone. Right.
That's a new state they made.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's our queer banter for you for today on today's news. What's our queer question? Do you have a quick question? You ready for this? I got a quick question for you.
I know you do.
Maxim.
If you stay ready.
Maxim.
Tell me.
Here's a question.
Yes.
If you were a color, like an actual Crayola color, like a color in a crayon box, I want to be clear so we don't get burned to the stake or canceled. If you were a color from a crayon box, what color are you and why?
Fuchsia. It's I wish I had my Aliens of Brooklyn bright fuchsia choke me hat, which I brought. I wish I had it on right now. Fuchsia is like a aggressively pink color.
Okay.
Aggressively pink. I like that.
Aggressively pink.
It's like neon pink.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about?
Is it a dark, or is it very like neon, like almost like closer to white?
It's like acidic pink.
Oh.
It's like
fuchsia. You want to hurt people as they walk up to you.
Oh, I mean, it's my favorite color.
Okay.
It's such a statement color. It's
Absolutely.
very powerful. It's also like pink is, a feminine color according to the straights. But it's such a like aggressive pink. It's like aggressive femininity. It's like I live.
Yeah, fuchsia. It's aggressive. Okay, Ricky Roman, what about you?
Gosh, I think I would be like a cosmic blue, like a blue with hints of purple. Like a bluey purple, like you would see in like the early evening of the sky as the moon was rising. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the same color as when like the moon's out during the day and you can see it?
No, that's too light. You're thinking too light. Like,
oh, you said purple, right?
Yeah, blue, okay. Like a blue purple. I can't think of a word for it. Periwinkle is too light.
I thought it was a person.
Like lavender
with more blue in it.
More blue.
There's a word. I don't know, but maybe a blue purple. She's a blue purple. That's what I see for myself. What about you?
I would be white.
Okay, why?
Because white is, I believe, I've read this somewhere, is all colors. And I believe that, like, I like to, like, embellish everything or try to, like, try everything in life. I just like things.
Try everything once.
Unless it's, like pig or, like, fisting. You don't have to try that once.
Oh.
You don't.
Yeah.
Was once the key word in that statement?
You don't have to try it. Anyways, we're here for other reasons other than that. We are here because we want to shed some light on our queer activists and our queer artists and producers that are putting together things that not only promote our nightlife, but also promote nightlife in the sense of gathering people together. But that's why we have Maxim here. Before we get to that, we want to talk to you, a person that is politically inclined. Is that the right word?
Very.
Politically literate. Okay. What other word do I know? Politically
obsessive.
is in the room, and I really appreciate you coming because right now there's a war in Ukraine, and it's very confusing. It's been almost 20 days now, so we've been able to sift through. Most of us been able to sift through mass media and get to the nitty gritty. And so far, this war is unexplained. It's hostile. It's violent. It's killing people, women, children, trapping people of color in basements. There's no food. There's no water. Can you just give us a breakdown? And I don't know. I guess first of all, tell us what your sign is.
I am a. Thank you for asking the very important question.
You're welcome.
I am wearing a little thing right now on my neck. I am a Virgo sun.
Okay.
Cancer moon and Cancer rising.
Okay, that's a lot of. It's Cancer fire.
Water. So I have a lot of water. I'm very emotional and sentimental, but then the Virgo keeps all of it together.
Would you rather buy gifts or would you make them?
Buy.
You rather buy someone a gift?
I like to go to a store and see what inspires. Think of a person I'm getting a gift for. See what inspires. See something that I feel would match their energy and give it to them.
I like that.
I don't have time to make shit. I'm sorry.
When you said sentimental, I was like, well, maybe you're a gift maker. But all right, I get it. Me either. I don't even know how to make things with
I don't even wrap my gifts.
Excuse me.
Macaroni noodles. Thank you for telling us that. All right, whatever. Are you reading anything or watching any type of television?
I am reading All About Love by Bell Hooks right now.
All About Love? What's it about?
It's a collection of essays about the importance of love to dismantle the capitalistic, imperialist, white supremacy, patriarchy systems.
Oh, my God.
Bell Hooks is it.
Go ahead, give me a button. Yes. And then I look over at my coloring book on my desk. I'm like, oh boy.
She colors out the lines.
I like that. Yeah, I color over the lines, baby. Well, that's good. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the people? Are you single right now?
I am single right now.
And you ready to mingle?
I'm ready to mingle, but if you're going to waste my time and play with my feelings, I'm going to cut you.
Yes. And you know what? You could add it to that. If you're like Doja Cat, if you're going to play it, play with pussy? How does she say it? You know the song I'm talking about?
I need to know.
She literally
Don't play with my heart, play with my pussy. I don't know.
Oh my God! She cannot stop vaping.
I can't. I covered up the thing. You can't see. I'm not plugging nobody.
Okay.
No plugs.
Alrighty.
No plugs.
Ready. Maxim, you have a unique story. And I know that you've told this once, but I didn't hit record that time. But I can see that.
Actually, we're checking that right now.
I can see her.
We've got the light on.
21
we're still going.
minutes.
All right.
Maxim, here you go.
Yes.
Tell us your story.
One more again.
My story.
When you were you're Russian born. No, you're Brooklyn born.
Brooklyn born. So let me tell you, my mom's side of the family are Jews from Odessa, which is a city, which is a beautiful city in the south of Ukraine, on the Black Sea. And my dad's side is Middle Eastern, Armenian, Persian, and a little bit of different Russian ethnicities, like Kalmyk. And very interestingly, Jews and Armenians and Kalmyk people, they were all heavily persecuted. So I have a lot of genocide on all of my sides of the family.
You mentioned this.
Yes, and I guess that a lot of it inspires what I do because I have the awareness of it. I was born in Brooklyn. Both my parents were born in Russia, in Moscow, which is the capital. It's a beautiful city. I miss it very much, even though I can't go back for multiple reasons. So I was born in Brooklyn because my mom, my grandma, and my great-grandpa came to New York in early 90s when the Soviet Union collapsed, and there was a lot of different republics became their own countries, like Russia, Ukraine, Belarus. There was a lot of nationalism, heavy nationalism, and there was a lot of anti-Semitism.
Was it unsafe?
My family had to leave Russia because it was unsafe for Jews.
Right.
So my grandma came here in 1994, and my mom came 2 years later, in 1996, to give birth to me here in the United States, which I'm very thankful for.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went back to Russia. I grew up in Moscow. That's Russian is my first language. It's not my primary language anymore.
Okay.
Because when I moved back to the United States in 2012, I actually moved because Putin was reelected.
Okay.
There was a period, people say that Putin has been in power in 22 years. He's been president for 22 years. Technically not, because we had a different president from 2008 to 2012. He was Dmitry Medvedev. He was handpicked by Putin to be his successor. And when Medvedev was in power, Putin changed the constitution, giving.
Is that how secession is supposed to work? Like, okay, I'm gonna leave, but I'm gonna pick you.
Right. Yeah.
And you're gonna do what I say.
I mean, yes. I mean, in the United States, after Obama left office, even though we had a primary, eventually Obama picked Hillary Clinton as his Democratic successor. So that didn't help her, obviously, as we all know. But in Russia, it was kind of like they kind of established this tradition that, they do have elections, but the previous president kind of chooses the successor. So
Okay.
It's not really, Russian democracy is not a true democracy.
I was going to say, can you shed some light on why he's still president? Like, how long is a fucking term? For people that don't know, how long did it last over there?
So the terms used to be just like in America, 2 terms for 8 years. That's why in 2008, Dmitry Medvedev became president, but then Putin just constantly changes the constitution to annul his terms.
Just rewriting it as you go.
I like how he can change it, but we can't change ours.
And interestingly, just seeing how often they change the constitution, I'm grateful that it is very hard to change constitution in the United States, but then it prevents any kind of progress. So,
right.
Two opposite sides of the spectrum.
True.
And Putin has just been able to establish this political machine where he's fully in control of everything, and whatever he wants he gets, because his hand is the one that feeds all of the oligarchs and the politicians, so they all are very loyal to him and they will do whatever he wants. And Russian TV is all owned by the state, and it's a lot of heavy propaganda, so majority of people heavily support Putin. It's almost like a cult.
Right.
So, even right now in the war, people are
even though the cult is starving and they can't get basic needs like sanitation pads or bread, food for their children, they're just sticking by Putin. I'm going to stick beside him.
Yes, because he was able to shape this narrative that he is the Russian people, that Russia without Putin is nothing, and that even though there's a lot of corruption, it's not his fault. It's the fault of the local officials, and Putin is with the people fighting corruption and protecting them from, the evil West and the America who constantly want to, destroy Russia.
Interesting.
Yeah. I wonder do they think that now that he's taking away their internet access and their ability to do their own research and to educate themselves on what they decide to believe in, or after this war that's causing them hunger, it's gonna collapse to their government.
Hasn't that always been restricted though? You're limited, right?
Yeah. So the censorship was not as strict as, let's say, in China, where Facebook and Twitter is banned. Those things were always allowed in Russia, but Russian people were never taught critical thinking or doing their own research, which is something that America doesn't really do as well.
No.
But it's not like people knew how to do their own research. But for example, there was always Russian Wikipedia, which right now just got blocked Wikipedia. Because they had
the Wikipedia.
I used to write articles for the Russian Wikipedia just when it first started.
Interesting.
You can write. Anyone can edit Wikipedia.
Yeah, it's much harder now. But when Wikipedia first started 15 years ago, it was literally anybody.
Right.
I found people that weren't dead on there. Well, it's you stayed in Russia until you were how old?
15.
And then what was the decision process of coming to live here?
Because I always had the American passport, I always had the option to come back. And in 2012, when Putin was reelected, I was going to political protests. I've been arrested. I've seen my friends being arrested, and I just I saw the trajectory of where the country is going.
Yeah.
And I just knew I had to get out. Because just seeing people were protesting in the streets and just seeing how violently they were treated. I was like, this is only going to get worse.
At the time, you were living your life outright as a queer, openly
I
queer.
wasn't.
Wasn't?
I mean, I was. Everybody who like has seen, everybody could tell I was wearing like skinny red jeans, and I was like staging Lady Gaga numbers at my high school for like parent teacher conferences. So like
Nobody.
I was very
Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga famously not allowed
What song
in
was it?
Russia anymore.
all of the songs. Listen, never did Born This Way, but we did like Marry the Night, we did Judas, we did Born This Way. I once almost got expelled from my high school because we did a number from Burlesque. When
Which one?
it's a cold and crazy world.
That's my favorite one. That's
Yeah. And then
So
we did a
good.
number to that song, which was a beautiful number. I choreographed the fuck out of it, but it was very explicit. Now that I look back.
Lots of grind, crotchy shots.
And
huh?
I was like, yeah, we were all like 15, 16, so maybe not appropriate.
So it wasn't a gay. They were like, this is inappropriate. Period.
Yeah. Nobody, I mean, the
the
teachers
gay
were-
didn't help.
The very interestingly, a lot of people in Russia, there's a lot of queer culture in Russia, especially on TV. But if
Interesting. I
it's
feel like we don't know that.
but if it's presented in the form of performance, like drag is allowed on stage, or
Right.
so it's like, oh, I'm not gay, but I am like dressed as Elton John. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Yeah.
Then people are like,
Performing.
oh, it's a number, it's
character.
culture, it's a character.
Absolutely.
People
Yeah.
would love that. So I was always supported because I was very creative and artistic. But I got like death threats from kids in school, predominantly male,
Of course.
predominantly from like very religious conservative backgrounds, who were obviously like, I guess looking back, were now threatened. But there was, when I left, there was a combination of things. I was coming to terms with my queerness,
Yeah.
and I was like, I just don't want to hide it anymore.
Yeah.
So it was like protecting myself as being a queer person, but also seeing that like I have to get out of Russia for all the other political, social, economic reasons.
Right. You said that, I remember the last time you were here, you said as soon as you got here, you were like, what, 16?
Yeah.
And you were like, I'm ready.
I came out half a year after because I kind of had a crush on this guy who was from Uzbekistan.
Okay.
And he was so in a closet. And I
Yes.
kind of understand why, because his family was very religious. But I was just so like pissed off at him for being in a closet, because I'm
Mhm.
like
Been
you live in
there.
a country where you can be openly queer.
Right.
Yeah.
And we were in New York. So I was like, you know what? If you're not going to come out, I'm going to come out for both of us.
T, yes.
I didn't out him.
Right.
Good for
Right.
you.
But because I think outing is never appropriate
No.
unless you're Lindsey Graham,
Yeah. Fuck that guy.
unless you're a politician who's taking everything, who's
Yes.
doing everything in your right to take away.
But
rights
on the
from other
weekends,
people.
tweaking off the rails, no, ma'am.
Period.
Come on, Lady G. So when I came here like 6 months later, I just came out. I was like, I can't.
What was the first thing you did to come out? What was the first like liberating thing? You like? Did you buy a skirt? Did you paint your nails? Did you dye your hair blonde?
No. That's it. I actually haven't done all those things until I was in college,
Okay.
because I still lived at home with family. My grandma and my family were like, just, you can be gay, but just like, we don't have to see it.
Oh, not that.
It's like a very appealing to the comfort zone of cishet people.
Yeah.
Um,
Keep that RuPaul Drag Race in your room.
right. I didn't even watch Drag Race until like All Stars 3. That was my
Okay.
first season that I
Okay.
watched live. Ever
Everyone-
since I've watched like every single season. Well, not every single season, because Drag
All
Race
the
Italia looked
franchises,
cheap.
yeah.
Yeah.
But what was the first thing you did? Here's a better question. Where was the first queer space you accessed and felt comfortable and safe?
I actually created my own.
Okay.
I created the very first Rainbow Coalition at my high school.
Mm-hmm.
We had talks about homophobia, but it wasn't just LGBTQ center. We also talked about racism and misogyny and all those things in high school. So it was a very much like a human rights after school club. And obviously that was the first queer space I ever entered, was the one that I created for myself. Because I also lived in South Brooklyn, and there's not a lot of queer infrastructure down there, even now, 10 years
Interesting.
later.
And then you were going to the university to get you said you have your BFA or was it, what'd you get?
I have a BA from
Mhm.
Baruch College.
Okay.
Arts administration in theater
Yes, ma'am.
Very.
Executive Esquire.
Yes, like I do theater,
Period.
but like on the administrative side, full stop. Period. I learned that from Olivia Lux.
Yes,
she
I
says
love
full
that.
stop.
More of your buttons, Chris. Jesus.
Pew pew pew.
She's doing good today, y'all. Y'all, she's not on it today.
Quiet. Don't be rude.
God, that voice.
God,
just.
Oh, it's jarring.
oh my God. Okay, but all right. So you got you're a lawyer, and what was it?
No, I wish. No, arts administration in theater and English.
Like I said, lawyer.
I date lawyers, but
Okay.
You hear? She says she don't date cheap lawyers only.
yeah, no offense to like struggling artists. I will
Amen.
book you, but I won't date you.
And when he
See.
says book, he take the B off and put a H. And now
You said it, not me.
what is going on? Why does Putin want Ukraine? What is this?
Great question. This goes back before Putin. This goes back thousands of years.
Okay.
There's always been a struggle between Ukraine and the kind of the bigger Russian country, whether it was the Russian Empire or Soviet Union or modern day Russia. Ukrainians have just been really abused by it, even though Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, is where the modern Russian civilization started. Kiev has been formed in like 6th century or like 5th century BC.
So the land's sacred.
The land is sacred. I mean, and it's been kind of heartbreaking to see that they're bombing Kiev, and they're literally bombing cultural places that have been there for like 1,500 years. In Soviet Union, there were like a lot of like fabricated famines, and millions of people died. In World War II, unofficially, there's 40 million people in Soviet Union who died. 8 million of them alone are Ukrainians.
Oh wow.
Which is
40 million.
insane, because
40 million, 8 million.
yeah, out of all the other Republican countries, because Ukraine is their horrible fate is that they're sandwiched between Western Europe and Russia.
Okay.
So they're always that like no man's land buffer zone. And Ukrainians are very independent people. They're very freedom loving people.
Yeah.
And in the last 30 years, since the Soviet Union collapsed and they became their own independent country, they were able to maintain I would say a pretty strong democracy. They have peaceful transfer of power.
Yeah.
They've had 6, 7 presidents, different administrations.
That's good.
People elect them. But they did have 2 revolutions, and that brings me back to why Putin wants Russia so bad. It all started in 2014. I'm sorry that I'm giving you so much history, but
No,
I think
it's
it's
good.
important
Education.
in this context.
Educate children.
In 2010, Ukraine elected a president who was previously ousted because there was fabrications that he was elected, fraudly. But then he came back, Viktor Yanukovych. But then he came back to power in 2011, I believe. And in 2013, he made the decision. He was faced with a choice: either to join a European trade agreement, which majority of Ukrainians supported, or join a trade agreement with Russia, which majority of Ukrainians didn't support, but because Yanukovych was so closely aligned with Putin, he was Putin's puppet, he made choice to go with Putin, and that really angered people. And they went to protest in the streets in the Maidan Square. Maidan means independence, so it's like their independence square. And when people were protesting, Yanukovych opened fire on them,
Jesus Christ.
killing 100 of them.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
And that started a full-on revolution. He had to flee the country, and Ukrainians staged a coup, but justifiable coup in this sense. And then they had a different government, and then the next year they had elections, and they elected this guy named Petro Poroshenko, who was a business owner. He owned chocolate factories. He was kind of like he was the businessman president of a democratic country before Trump. Yes. But Putin, when he saw that Ukrainians overthrew his puppet, he took it personally, and he was like, "How dare you?" So he annexed Crimea. They held a referendum, but it was very much like, gun to people's head, like, "Do you want to join Russia?" And they said yes. And then he also sent pro-Russian troops to two regions in eastern part of Ukraine called Donetsk and Lugansk, and those they kind of overtook the government, those two regions, and now they claim that they're pro-Russian separatists. And there's been a war happening in that region for 8 years with a lot of casualties, and Putin obviously sending weapons. But now he realized that, why just stop there? Why not take over the whole country? Because he has this insane paranoia. It's two things. One, he has insane paranoia of NATO, that NATO wants to put their weapons in Ukraine and face them at Russia. Does NATO want to have troops in Ukraine? Absolutely. Do they want it because Russia is an aggressor and they have to protect, the world peace? Yes. And another thing, Putin has these like insane imperialist ambitions. He lines himself in line with like Catherine the Great and Peter the Great. So he really wants to bring back Russian Empire, which is why there's a lot of conversation. Because Ukraine wasn't the first war he started.
Right.
There was war in Georgia in 2008. There was a war in Chechnya, which is a very infamous region, in early 2000s. And
did he lose those wars?
He got lands. The areas that he sent troops to, he was able to successfully annex them. So in one way he won the wars, but on the other hand, he made people in those countries in those regions really resent Russia. So that's a very in terms of like,
it wasn't a win or lose.
Right.
You just made yourself look bad.
Yes, but then he got lands, and right now, and obviously there's a war been happening in Ukraine since 2014. But right now it's obviously on a whole nother level. Right now we're talking about full-blown war with like, obliteration of, the entire cities, and obviously mass refugee crisis. Like I think like 7 million people have fled from Ukraine, all over Europe, Poland, UK, United States, Canada. And he's using, weapon, and we've seen he's been bombing maternity hospitals. He bombed
apartment buildings. He actually this just happened yesterday. And it's like, this is why he's been designated as a war criminal. There is a city called Mariupol in Ukraine, and it's been fully blocked around. So people don't have electricity, people don't have water, people don't have food. There are people dying of mass starvation there.
Jesus.
And there was a beautiful theater there where they hid women and children, and they even wrote on the asphalt in front of the theater, children on both sides, and they still bombed it.
The people, they were coming out of the rubble. I was reading they were coming out of the rubble and I mean, for a lot of people that are listening, like a war crime is listed in the Geneva Convention Act, and it's pretty much when you genocide and you murder innocent people that have nothing to do with the war. They're not a part of the military. So women, children, civilians, elderly, handicapped people, any people in the hospital. There's been hospitals bombed, and he won't be held accountable. Let's be honest, because you got to capture a war criminal, you need to hold him in a high court, and that's something that we can't do because why? He's in a bunker in Siberia.
Yes.
Okay.
He's not even in Kremlin right now, which, interestingly,
is that what he's trying to sell? Is he trying to make people believe he's like in the Kremlin? But
I don't even think he is, because he knows his own people wouldn't mind. They also don't care.
Right.
They wouldn't mind what?
That he's not in Kremlin.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Because they're like, you know what? If he's in Kremlin, Ukraine, like NATO will send airplanes to Moscow to try to capture him.
Right.
I actually think, as somebody who is from Moscow, if you think of, so Moscow is kind of like Washington D.C. That's where the entire political apparatus is.
Yeah.
And I actually think, personally, I don't know how good of an idea is to be hiding in a bunker while your entire government is thousands of miles away from you, because what if they start organizing against you? I'm manifesting this. What if they all start manifesting it? People in the media, which I think we're gonna get into in a second. People in the media, people in Duma, which is like their Senate, people in the different like branches of the government. What if they all start organizing without you, and you can't do anything because you're thousands of miles away?
Do you see?
That's what I would be doing.
Any similarities between him and the last Tsar, Romanov. What's his
Right,
name?
Nicholas II.
Yes.
No, Nicholas II was kind of a very. I mean, he was hot. But he didn't have the same insane imperialist.
Right.
And
He was a little more disconnected.
He was more disconnected. He wasn't as evil, and because he comes from a line of like tsars and rulers. I don't think the stakes are not as high. Putin comes from a poor family. He was abused as a kid.
Okay.
He
Damn.
was the KGB agent, so he really made it to the top of the ranks. And he,
What's a KGB agent equivalent to CIA?
I'm not CIA's.
So.
What's the difference between CIA and FBI? I mean, I know they're two separate
Federal
agencies.
Bureau of
That's a
Investigation.
good question.
Central Intelligence Agency.
So I guess FBI is like police.
FBI is kind of like
Those are
more.
I don't know.
They
I'm
do
not
more
gonna- I can't
federal-based
say.
crimes, I think, here in America.
Okay.
FBI, CIA, Central Intelligence Base. If you think Central Intelligence Base,
More like
They-
spies.
they're
right?
more like would be a hub of all information.
I see.
And that's just me thinking how I would put it in the military terms, but yeah, I think the
Right.
CIA is a little more like choo choo.
Got it. So
Yeah.
I would say KGB is like the CIA. If we talk about like the involvement of CIA in like let's say Latin America, helping overthrow
Oh yeah.
leaders in Latin America,
Right.
and just causing like chaos on behalf of the United States, I would say KGB is that way. But KGB
Right.
is, I mean, KGB agents don't trust the word they say just because they've been trained to lie and deceive and cause destruction, anything for the benefit of the state, whoever gets to decide what the benefit is, and whoever gets to decide what the state's interests are.
Fine. Well, that sucks and it shouldn't be happening. You're here. Oh, hit another button.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep up with these questions. It's
Oh, jeez, Rick.
There you go, baby. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, one more time. You're here to tell us about your grand endeavors. We were invited to your Christmas event can you tell us about that? I know it's not
Yes.
Christmas now, but
Right.
I had fun.
Right. So I am, being queer person from Russia, and growing up in New York where there was no infrastructure for people like me, we kind of realized that there's a huge void, huge like gaping hole of thank you. That there is just really no queer infrastructure for people from the post-Soviet region like Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, Georgia. We have like Poppy Juice, which I guess is like queer Latino party,
right.
and all that, but nothing for us. So I became part of a collective called We Together, where we organize events, nightlife events for the CISA community. CISA stands for Caucasus, Eastern Europe, and Central Asia. We used to say Russian-speaking community. We're moving away from that term
Okay.
for multiple reasons.
Right.
Obviously, because there is a war, but also because we just want to be more inclusive and diverse, because it's not just...
Limited to.
And also a lot of people in those countries don't speak Russian. So,
Right.
because it's been 30 years since Soviet Union collapsed. A lot of people in, let's say, the Baltic countries, Estonia, Lithuania, Russia, and Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia, they just don't speak Russian at all.
Right.
Because why should they? It's not their language.
Right.
So you guys came to our holiday party, which
Yes.
was like our first like big event, even though we've been having events last summer. And we flew in a drag queen from Moscow, and we had all these different performers from
Yes.
Russia and
What was-
Belarus and Georgia.
What was her name?
Her name was Zaza Napoli.
Zaza Napoli.
Very, very drag, like very old school drag.
Yeah,
name.
I like that. You were like organizing the hell out of it.
Absolutely.
Pyum pyum.
Yes.
Pyum,
yes.
pyum.
You saw me do an outfit change,
I had
running
your
around in
outfit
high
change.
heels.
You came out with a purse. I like that your outfit included a bag.
Well, a lady do always carry a purse.
Okay.
You had your phone and your other like event planner things and stuff shoved inside. I was like, you better. And the best part of the night was like, you Russian men, they like black guys. I was like, don't no. And, then, and like 5 minutes later, I'm like,
I remember exactly why I told you, because the three of us were standing, and then like we see, because it was a $3 bill, same where we're gonna have our fundraiser this Sunday. Well, the same. What's the little bit of the when is this is obviously gonna come out?
This is gonna come out after,
Right?
But you can say this Sunday. It doesn't matter.
Right. So where we, so a $3 bill, the same place where we had our fundraiser for Ukraine. And I remember the three of us are standing chit-chatting, and then I see at the corner of the bar there's like a group of Russian guys who are just like looking our way, and I'm like, who are they looking at? But then I'm like, they're looking at you, and you for sure too.
She had her like she's wearing a little tank top.
Yes. Yes. So last time we had obviously a dance party and we wanted to like celebrate life, but this time, you know, we actually were planning for a similar event to that, but then the war happened and we realized that we have to change the format.
Yeah.
To make it a fundraiser with 100% of the donations and ticket sales going to different organizations benefiting Ukraine. Just because, you know, that's the mission of our collective, but also that's just like I think what we should do as human beings.
I love that. Go ahead, Ricky Roman. You have a question.
Excuse me? This is all just flowing so organically. I don't want to throw my stick in the machine.
Throw it in there.
Ooh wee. Ooh wee is right.
What are you thinking of asking next?
I'm so sorry. It's I'm loving you sharing your story organically with us. I want to
take a puff of her pen.
Yeah, always. I'm trying. I want to ask something that will let's bring it back to Ukraine. How can people avoid misinformation right now on both sides?
That's a great question. I'm thinking. So maybe like I can like finish.
Because earlier I remember you saying a lot of nationals have a hard time doing critical thinking. You know.
Right. I'm also having like things in my mind.
Okay.
Like, no,
put it together.
I'm thinking like should I finish talking about the fundraiser?
Please.
Right. So I'm just like, you know, this fundraiser. It's very important for us because we obviously are a queer collective, but we aim to specifically bring in everybody from Russia, Ukraine, Georgia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, all of those regions. And at this fundraiser, we had a lot of Ukrainian singers. We had a Georgian singer. We had Kazakh speakers. We had different trans speakers. And it was just, and a lot of them were, you know, straight, coming into a queer space.
Interesting.
Yes. I would say half of our performers are straight. This time around, and we're obviously also had you know, nightlife staples of New York City, like the Dragon Sisters,
yes,
or like Chikoraro or Jupiter Genesis, who's an amazing drag queen. She was top 5 in Janelle number 5's Ultimate Diva pageant. So proud of her. And it was very important for us to bring the entire community together for Ukraine because it's a great cause. And you know, we've seen it was important to bring the entire CISA community, but also to have all these LGBTQ people coming together. And we've got incredible support from the community. You know, Untitled Queen, who is a visionary drag artist, they donated a couple of their prints to the event so we can raffle it.
Nice.
And it's been nice to see the support because, you know, we've seen a lot of the queer people and LGBTQ folks, you know, stand up for Free Britney, and just like really channel their energy for her, which is a great cause. But it was great to see, and I hope to see the same kind of energy for people in Ukraine who are fleeing violence.
Absolutely.
And not to cut you, but how is the transition or the exiting of our LGBTQIA plus community members leaving, you know, Ukraine? Are they finding places to go to? I mean,
right. That's a great question. And that's kind of what we're talking about. I first want to say that Ukraine, out of all the post-Soviet Union countries, has been one of the most progressive on LGBTQ issues. Out of definitely comparing to Russia, but also like other countries. They had gay prides.
Wow.
They have I don't think they have. I don't think gay marriage is allowed, but you can live openly as a queer person. You can run for
Yeah.
office as a queer person. And trans people can present female for like official documents photos. However, there is a problem that trans people still have the sex assigned at birth as the one that's in their passport. So like
Yeah.
trans women would still have male mark in their passport, and that's why a lot of them have been having a really hard time getting out of Ukraine.
Yes.
Just because all men from the age of 18 to 65 are not allowed to leave Ukraine just because
Yeah.
they need to stay back and fight. So there's been, there's a amazing organization called Cohort or Kagorta in Ukrainian, and they were one of our partners for our event. They are a Ukrainian trans organization who are providing refugee status and just resources for trans people in Ukraine and getting them out. I will say this, a lot of LGBTQ folks in Ukraine stayed and they joined the military.
Salute them.
Salute them.
Amazing.
And the reason for that is because they know the price of fighting for their rights in a country where they literally had to build up LGBTQ community from nothing.
Yeah.
So a lot of them joined the military. There was actually an organization called LGBTQI Militaries in Ukraine supporting LGBTQ folks who are fighting back. There's actually been cute stories about gay couples joining the military together.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
Which is just quite interesting, just, because there's this kind of narrative in the media, and I'm sure you know this more than anybody else about, like, gay people don't want to serve, queer people don't want to serve, and, they're like...
Whose narrative is that?
This is het
Of
media.
which country? Because I know in this country there are plenty of LGBTQIA people that are facing the utmost, discrimination and getting and staying in the military. And these are the people that want to fight. And let me remind you that only it was a survey that said less than 1% of Americans voluntarily, because there's no draft, we don't do that anymore, volunteer to join. That's Americans in general, join the military. So even smaller part of that 1% are people from which are inside the LGBTQIA plus community trying to serve their country that offers them the most freedom. So I'm proud of, them. I feel like it's a very, 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 very strenuous war in which,
and they know what they're fighting for, because if Russia successfully invades and takes over Ukraine, which I'm just gonna say it's just not gonna happen. Ukrainians will win. They will win this war. But they know that if Russia takes over, whatever progress has been made in terms of LGBTQ rights will just
be dismantled.
It'll be dismantled, and there has actually been reports by American intelligence that Putin has a list of LGBTQ activists in Ukraine that he plans to detain and arrest and kill, because queerness encourages independence, it encourages liberation, it encourages critical thinking, it encourages self-expression and authenticity, all of the things that threaten Putin's very fragile regime. I just want to say it looks like people have this perception that Putin is a very powerful leader, and then the entire apparatus is strong. It's a huge machine, but it is very fragile because, it's based on intimidation and fear.
Right.
And those are not sustainable models for people.
Well said.
Tell us about what is going on in Russia as far as they're acting out, standing up against the war.
I was on the phone with my mom the other day, and she was just like bawling, crying. And, I think hearing your mother cry is one of the most painful and hard things anybody can, experience.
Yeah.
Things are really bad in Russia, I would say. Obviously, they're not being bombed, but they are in the middle of an information war. They get bombarded with propaganda every single day, and it's driving people insane because obviously they're appalled by the war. They, again, Soviet Union lost like 40 million people in World War II. And for the last 80 years, there's been every May 9, there's been celebrations that the war has ended, calling for peace. so people are appalled at the war, but then they're also feeding the propaganda. So a lot of them think that the war is necessary and they support it. You know, a lot of people are standing up to it, like my family. The people are protesting, but it's very dangerous.
Right.
They've passed legislation saying that you can't even say the word war. You can't call it a war. You can't call it an invasion. You can call it a special military operation.
Wow.
Media
Being told what to
publications,
say.
media publications have to blur out the word war. I mean, we've all seen this woman, Marina Ovsyannikova, who came out in the on what she did was actually insanely brave.
Absolutely.
Because that thing that she came on, those are the 9 p.m. news on the first channel. That is the prime news. That is the news source. So she came out with a big poster saying they're lying to you, no war. Publications in Russia that were covering that incident had to blur out what her poster said, just because it's against the law. You can go to prison for it. But people are standing up. People are tired because the sanctions are going to hurt Russians economically very bad. There's already shortages of like sugar and flour and bread, and you know, there are potential talks of devaluation of ruble, which, you know, Americans don't even understand what that means.
Right.
But you know, basically when your entire currency is just like scraped and they create a new one, so all the savings you have might be annulled.
What do you mean? Hold on. So like that mean like so my little $5 at my little Chase bank, they could just be like, girl,
It's not worth
Yes.
anything.
start over. I mean, it's
Start
not worth
over.
anything right
Yeah.
now.
Basically, let's say you have $10,000 in your savings account,
Yeah.
and then tomorrow they say, you know what, we're changing the currency. The $10,000 that you used to have is now equal to like $500 in new currency. That happened twice in Soviet Union, so there is a potential conversation about that. They're talking about a economic default happening sometime in April.
What will that mean? What's that
The
mean?
default is when the country is unable to pay on its own debts.
Okay.
There's been constant talk about it happening here in the United States. Thank you, Mitch McConnell.
Right.
And
Not us defaulting.
there's been talks last year that if there's, you know how in the United States we're always having on the verge of government shutdown, and we're having a government
Always,
shutdown. That is the worst case scenario, is that default might happen and then the country cannot pay its own debts to other countries. So that's a possibility for Russia. And when that happens, that's when the government can start taking its own citizens' money and confiscating them. You know, it's illegal right now to own dollars or euros right now in Russia. So my mom had to take out all of her money, and I'm not going to tell you what she did with it or where she hid it, but my mom had to
We wasn't gonna ask.
but I'm just giving you a picture of the
Right.
things that is happening there. So I really want people, whomever listening to this, to hear this. Russian people don't want this. They're suffering. They're trying to stand up. I saw so many ignorant comments on the internet, people saying like, if Russians don't like Putin, why can't they just stop electing him or overthrow him?
That's the most ignorant thing.
That's the most they tried to overthrow the government here 2 years ago actually a year ago on January 6th.
Right.
Did that happen? No. And we had somebody who was a president in power, so it's not that easy to do.
No.
And people are doing their damn best, but Russian people deserve empathy right now.
Yeah. Also, they can look at the news and see that it is absolutely not allowed to. There's no such thing as free. Is there such thing as freedom of speech in Russia? So there
Right.
you go. You can get slapped hardcore.
You can. I mean, Alexei Navalny is rotting in prison. Just the way Nelson Mandela was in South Africa. Alexei Navalny was an opposition leader who was poisoned by Putin, and then he went to Germany to get treated. And when he came back to Russia, they put him in prison. And
I've seen this. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's old school.
yeah, so Russia right now is going through a lot of times, but the next couple of months are going to be critical for Russia. We're going to see whether his inner circle and the politicians and the media will stand up, and we're seeing right now in the media that people are quitting en masse the channels, and they're protesting, and they're like, we're over this. And the thing is that Putin's machine is heavily built on propaganda.
Right.
So if his propaganda falls, then everything else will fall.
And there's no news. There's no. Where do people? Because you can't access Twitter now. They've cut their feeds. Facebook has cut their feed.
Yes, they've been saying they're blocking Instagram, but they've been blocking it for a week now. People are downloading VPNs,
Right.
which is also they haven't counted it because VPN is a method of people getting internet autonomy.
Yeah.
Despite the censorship, so I can't tell you. I'm trying to stay hopeful, but then also just seeing what they're doing to people in Ukraine is just the ruthlessness of Putin's actions.
We didn't ask you this before, but do you have any Ukrainian family members?
Well, my entire mom's family is from Odessa, which is in Ukraine. I have some Ukrainian, I would say family, not like really blood related, but chosen family, very close members in Ukraine who are staying in Ukraine. My sister's nanny, who raised my sister and is a very close person to us, she lives in the city. Hello, Oля. I doubt she's listening to this, but give a huge shout out to her. She lives in a city called Vinnytsia, which is right in the center of Ukraine, and she lives in a village next to it. And because she has her own yard where she grows her own food, her kids escaped. One of her kids is in Poland, the other kids are in Italy. But every day she's been making food and bringing it to the trenches to feed the soldiers.
She's been walking it.
She's been walking every day. She's making food and bringing it. Ukrainian people are fighting, and they will fight tooth and nail. They will fight until the last Ukrainian is standing because they were like, you will not rule us. And
I just learned in the I heard the Ukrainian national anthem, and I think it's in the first two lines.
The peaceful.
That they're talking about not shedding more blood to Russia. That's incorporated in the song, and I'm like, it's beautiful. I mean, most national anthems are,
What's it? What is it? What is it exactly? What's the words?
I'm gonna botch the translation.
I can look it up.
Would you
now.
Please? But
it's
I was listening to the other day, and someone's translating it, and the first two lines were kind of haunting in that it's not the first time Russia's done this, and it's a testament to their resilience.
But it's also written in there don't try me again.
Exactly. Exactly. In song.
I know we didn't talk about it much this time, but maybe another time we can talk about how why they decided to give up their nuclear weapons. I mean, that was a bit of a mistake.
Yeah, so the first line of Ukrainian national anthem in translation is, "Nay, thou art not dead, Ukraine. See, thy glory is born again." Like the constant fighting for their independence against. They don't mention Russia by name, but it's very much like we know who is killing Ukrainians. So.
And don't try it again.
Boom.
Try me again, see what happens. You have been in the forefront of creating lots of queer spaces, but especially for people who are from the same background and intersectionalities as yourself. What is it like to be a queer event planner and producer right now? Right now, I'm not doing this for the money, obviously. But I doubt. I even know Suzanne Barsh doesn't do it for the money because there is no money in nightlife, and I love Suzanne Barsh. That's she's such an inspiration. She's done it for a long time.
It's the first time when you guys came to our event on holiday, for holiday season. We knew we're doing something right with We Together because after the event, people came up to us crying, saying "Thank you." We wanted to feel that because. The beauty of our community, the LGBTQIA plus community, is that we know what it feels like to be othered. We know what it feels like not understood and accepted by our own families or society. So just to find our tribe of people who understand us, uplift us, platform us, exactly. And, I know that a lot of LGBTQ folks that escaped LGBTQ persecution in their home countries back in post-Soviet region, came to New York, came to this country, and they still had to experience a lot of that in conservative communities,
right? Because
a lot of Russians and Ukrainians, especially in the areas of Brighton Beach and Coney Island, which are historically where those people have settled, because they still lack. They're so geographically far. New York is just gigantic. They're so geographically far from Hell's Kitchen on Williamsburg. they just don't know, and they don't have that exposure, and they don't have the queer infrastructure. So I just know that there are so many queer people, in those communities that like just want to find their tribe, and they still have that and they take on a lot of that internalized homophobia and transphobia.
Yeah.
So I just know that, the events that we do are, it sounds so cliche, but they're saving lives.
No,
No,
it's
it's
meaningful.
not
It's
cliche.
it
They
makes
are saving
sense.
lives. You never know. You know what? It's like moving to a state you don't know. Like if you were just to move to Alaska right now, we would be taking you from
Which used to be Russian.
They said they want it back too. They said you're going to return that, and you're going to return California, and we sent them like a 30-day like no refunds, fucking notice. No, but it is life saving because people outside of what they know, their culture, people that look like them, that speak the language, same language as them, that may have shared the same customs as them. We all don't experience Christmas. We all don't do Easter.
Right,
just the
right,
same
right.
foods and things like that. That is warming, especially if you are here in New York or anywhere else trying to do the normal hustle and bustle. We all know a toxic work environment on top of it, being a roommate here on top of it, the normal study, like pressing parts of life.
And the MTA and the rats.
And the rats. To go to somewhere where people, you feel safe and you recognize the music and the people. It is life. It is, you're doing something really important, and I commend you for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I'm not Russian. I'm always late though.
It took me a second. You might not be Russian, but we each of us know what it's like to, you spoke on a little bit earlier, to be othered and to feel like even though we all fall under the LGBTQ plus community umbrella, the intersectionality of having being around people that speak your language, quite literally your language, is extremely comforting. So I know that, your work is appreciated, baby.
Thank you so much. We have a great team, and everybody who's working on this event and future events collaboratively is putting their heart and soul into this. So
it's a well-oiled machine. We got to see it in action.
Nicely lubed up.
And you're doing, and let's talk about, it's March 20th of your event that's going to happen. Of course, this is being pre-recorded, so this will be after. But I'm assuming the CISA.
Yes, CEECA.
Do they have their own website? Is there places that people can look in, join, Zoom?
Yes.
Talk to people if they want to move.
Great. Thank you for asking that. We don't have a website yet. We have our Instagram page.
Okay.
It's @we_together.
Okay.
The name of our collective is We Together. We are going to be doing other events. We are planning an entire Pride Festival in June.
All right.
We're going to have another event at $3 Bill on June 19th, which is Juneteenth. I know. That's just the date that $3 Bill gave us.
Okay, but everybody can go somewhere. If you black or you're a person of color and you decide to go somewhere else with Juneteenth, you decide.
Yeah,
to do that.
we're
not Russian.
We're gonna see about that. We're gonna actually showcase a documentary by gay Chechen men about what it's like to live in Chechnya. Actually, by an actual Chechen man, because there's been another documentary about being gay in Chechnya, but it was shot by a Russian man, and there's a little bit of that imperialist white savior component to it. We're gonna be at the Pride. We're gonna be doing different events, and we're always looking for people to join our team. And if we're also trying to just make everybody feel welcome, but specifically people whose first language is Russian or Ukrainian, or who come from that part of the world and just want to find their tribe and come to a party where they can listen to music they grew up listening to in back home, or just find some cute boys or girls or days,
however you want to do it,
whichever way you identify.
Where you want.
Everybody, it's CISA LGBTQI community. We're trying to be as inclusive, as diverse as possible. So find us on Instagram at @we_together.
And if they want to support people of a donate, first of all, I'm gonna say this: if you haven't been able to go to GoFundMe, please look for the GoFundMe. There's one specifically for the refugees, not refugees. My apologies. The students of color that are stuck in basements
Yeah.
because they're being turned away at the Ukrainian borders for whatever reasons. We don't know the whole story, but either way, like at this point, people are innocent, people are dying. So being stuck anywhere in Ukraine is awful. Please go donate to their GoFundMe. But is there a place for people to donate in more in general for the LGBTQIA plus people to receive funds
in Ukraine?
In Ukraine.
Yes. So the organizations that we partnered up for this event, there's one called Razom, RAZOM, means together. They are just a very hands-on humanitarian organization. They're helping Ukrainians in general. There's Kiev Pride. Kiev is the capital of Ukraine. Kiev Pride. I guess you're gonna have the links in the bios for this episode. Maybe. They are the most prominent LGBTQ organization in Ukraine.
Okay.
And so you can also find them, donate to them. There's LGBTQI Militaries, which is another organization we mentioned, and there's also Cohort. They are the trans Ukrainian organization helping trans people in Ukraine. So I personally know all those organizations. They are very hands-on. They are doing incredible work. And if you want to donate to them, spread awareness, send them like a message of solidarity, they'll take any support and love.
Get to it. Also, one last one. There's people, of course, LGBT. There's people like us, our community members, in Russia.
Yes.
That are stuck there. They don't have food. They have nothing to do with the war. There are people too. There are organizations that you can, plug for that.
I am thinking, can't think of anything, but also unfortunately due to the current sanctions,
they can't get the money.
You can't transfer money to Russia right now.
Oh, damn!
Crazy.
Because they turn off that, and that's
right.
That's the painful thing about these sanctions is that obviously I support the sanctions because we have to put as much pressure on Putin and his government as possible, but it's the average people who are hurting, and it's the marginalized people who are always hurting the most.
Always.
If Russia defaults on their debts, does that cancel out the debts that we owe them in America?
I don't know if we own any money to Russia.
Yeah, I think America is Chinese owned.
Yeah.
Trying to get the receipts together.
Yeah, but it's what they're doing right now because they froze a lot of central Russian bank assets in Europe, and they're actually going to take that money. So they're already allocating $300 billion to the rebuilding of Ukraine. But I guess stay tuned.
Right.
Thank you so much for coming to Queer Late Night and giving us a very, very, very thorough, detailed explanation on what's going on, not only in Ukraine, but also how to understand the people who are against the war in Russia. And we appreciate you tremendously. And I'm pretty sure everyone that you've organized multiple events for have been very appreciative. Do you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
Thank you. They can find me on Instagram at Maxim_fab. I live on Instagram.
Okay.
And then go from there.
All right. And Ricky Roman?
You know what it is. Ricky Roman 91 across the board. Bow, 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 bow.
And you can follow us at Queer Late Night. We're back on Instagram. Queer Late Night. I think it's just Queer Late Night on Instagram, or you can follow me, Elle McCullers, on Instagram. I think that's it. Thank you so much for listening. Please donate and follow the links and find the links in both bios. We look forward to entertaining you one more time later on. Good night.
Good night.
Good
night. Bye.